Alright, what is up guys? So I was playing Pure Phantom Knight back around when Burst of Destiny first came out, and I was really having a lot of fun with it. There's a lot of really cool things that the deck can do, and people sort of considered it a mid-range deck, which was particularly strong around that time. But it loses hard to a lot of cards like Lancia and Ghost Bell, and I had some hero players at my locals because DPE had just been introduced, so the deck loses pretty hard to Dark Law. Then the Adventurer package came out, and people started playing Phantom Knight a lot more, even though the Adventurer Phantom Knight deck didn't end up being the tier 0 meta-defining threat that we thought it was going to be. It still is the more dominant way to play the deck, and in fact the Adventurer engine is so pervasive right now that it is really kind of warping a lot of our decision making when it comes to how we build our decks right now. And so I decided to go ahead and update the Phantom Knight deck and show you basically just a pure generic version that does not use the Adventurer package, mainly because I can't afford it. So this is a pretty budget-friendly version. It also includes a lot of the budget-friendly side deck choices, so we're not playing, droplets or anything like that that's super expensive right now. So this deck is overall incredibly affordable, but I also wanted to, this is probably the most generically competitive way you could play it outside of having the Adventure package, but I also wanted to kind of experiment around with a more Exceeds focused version of the deck because this deck plays way more Link monsters than Exceed monsters, and some people recently had some pretty big success at regionals with a more Exceed focused version of the deck, and some of the cards, particularly Exceed monsters, that had to cut out of the extra deck in order to fit the Dagda and the Verte in the extra deck here were compromises I was not excited to make. So let's go ahead and get into the main deck. So we are still rocking 3 Tour Guide, and the target for this is one of the Burning Abyss monsters, which you can also go Tour Guide for Tour Guide if you have to. And of course that gets you the 2 level 3s you need to make Cherubini, which is okay in this deck. It's not as good as it is in, for instance, one of the like 60 card 3-axis decks or in pure Burning Abyss, but it still is one of the best combo starters we have because we don't have to burn any of the hard once per turn Phantom Knight effects to get our combo going. It's also a 1-card combo, which doesn't require any of the extenders we play. And we do play a lot of level 3 extenders, and we've sort of changed up the ratio of those for this version as well. So we are obviously still playing the 3 Tour Guide. As far as the Phantom Knights themselves go, we have the 3 Torn Scale, one of the best ones. It has the discard cost to do the Foolish Burial effect to bin a Phantom Knight from your deck to the grave is a little annoying, and sometimes that can put you in a pretty awkward place to discard for that effect. But the recursion as well, to be able to bring it back from the graveyard as another body, is huge later down in the combo lines with this deck because of the need to make so many Link 2s in the form of not only Cherubini at the beginning of the combo, but Dagda and Verte towards the end of the combo. We have the 3 Boots because you are always going to search one of these as part of your combo, but it does help to have 3 because if you hard open it, it is an extender that allows you to make Cherubini initially anyway. So that does come up, and then being able to, of course, search your back row, get some interruptions with your Fog Blades or another extender with your Shade Brigandine does come up a lot as well. I'm also playing 2 of the Cloak because of the same reason. You always send Cloak off of Rusty, but you want to have another one in deck just in case. And again, if you hard open this, it's not the worst thing in the world because you can normal summon this and then special summon another one of your extenders and still combo off. I also have the 1 Gloves. Really glad they gave us a rarity upgrade of that. This one didn't come up as much other than just to proc the effect of Torn Scale. So this one I don't really like that much, but being able to proc that revival effect of Torn Scale I thought was pretty huge. And then this one right here, Stained Greaves, is actually coming up a lot more nowadays than I thought it would. So if you hard open this and you go into Rusty, it's a great opportunity to just drop this out of your hand, and it's another free body which can easily enable your, again, Dagda, Verte, Appaloosa, whatever you're trying to go into. And that's it for the Phantom Knights. We play, of course, the necessary Burning Abyss cards to facilitate the Cherubini line. So Graf and Seer is pretty self-explanatory for the Cherubini line, but Skarm is the other Burning Abyss. This is your primary tour guide target, so you want to go into this because the end phase graveyard effect will search you another tour guide, which just gives you a +1. But potentially next turn you can go tour guide for tour guide if you absolutely had to. But it just adds you another card to hand, which can come up a lot when it comes to, again, the discard cost of Torrent Scales and other things like that. So this was my third Burning Abyss of choice, although I've seen a lot of people play some different ones. And it basically just depends on what other effect you want. Like if you're going second and you want a monster pop or a back row pop, there are other Burning Abyss monsters that facilitate that. But this combo right here is huge, and obviously don't forget, as part of your combo with Seer, you're not bringing back the Graph, you're bringing back the Cherubini, because that is a Burning Abyss monster, and that's the essential part of that combo. So we have the Psychic monsters, the Weed Dealer, and the Tracker, which are level 3 extenders, which come up a lot if we hard open those and we don't have Tour Guide. We have the Dangers, which help unbrick our hands, and they're also level 3s, and Darks, so they go into all of our combos very nicely. And then I'm playing a decent amount of hand traps between the main and the side. We have 3 Ash in the main, and then 3 Ogre in the main. And other than Ogre being one of my preferred hand traps right now, it also comes up because we're playing 3 E-Telly, which means that not only is this a really good hand trap right now in this particular format, but it also means that we have E-Telly always live, and this can potentially be another extender if we need it for any other reason. And that ended up being way better than some of the other choices, and I'll kind of talk about that when I get to E-Telly. And then the last monsters is I was really tight on space for monsters. I would like to actually play more hand traps, but I feel like some of the other cards are kind of consistency related. We have the DPE bricks and the Scythe. You don't want to draw any of these, but it's not the worst thing in the world if you do. On to the spells, we have 3 E-Telly, another pretty recent change with this current format we're in right now, bringing this back up to 3. So what I did here is I had Instant Fusion and Ready Fusion and a Flame Ghost as a level 3 Dark in the extra deck as the target for that, just so we had even more level 3 extenders. And I decided to cut those because I desperately needed extra deck space for, again, to fit the Dagda, the DPE, and the Verte, which I didn't previously play in this deck. So I had to make a lot of compromises in the extra deck that I wasn't particularly happy with, but ended up being okay once we did this change. So this allows you not only to get into the 2 Psychic monsters, but also lets you get into the Ghost Ogre, which is just infinitely better than the Instant Fusion targets. And then this being Quick Play comes up. It is just fantastic. And then I also cut the Kagemusha Knights from the deck because those were another level 3 extender that would complement your normal summon. I cut those out because with 3 copies of this and the 2 other Psychic monsters, this going into one of those cards from the deck helps thin the deck as well. So it's not just a body, a normal monster that's just a body on the field and is kind of potentially bricky. The other spells, of course, is the 2 Fusion Destiny, because hard opening that is not the worst thing in the world like it is if you play Red Eyes Fusion for Dragoon, and then the 1 Rhoda, because we almost play an all-warrior-based deck in terms of the Phantom Knights. The traps is pretty interesting, but not anything that's not standard, so it's the 3 Fogblade. I maxed out on these because you usually set 1 or 2 of them off of your initial Rusty combo, and of course it's a monster negate. It's really quite strong, and it comes up a lot, but hard opening this is not bad. Searching it off of either Cloak or Boots is not bad. Like, it's just, I wouldn't play any less than 3 of this. And then the 1 Shade Brigandine obviously is an extender, and then the 1 Sword, which is pretty good. The attack bonus of this actually does come up quite a bit, but then the ability to extend with it comes up a lot as well. So sometimes we'll send this to the graveyard off of, if it's not the first turn, if we're in a grind game, we will send this to the graveyard off of Torrent Scale and use it to combo with. And then the last main deck card is 3 Impermanence. Impermanence has been pretty awesome recently, and it kind of rounds out the hand trap lineup. So that is actually it for the main deck. On to the extra deck. Of course, Cherubini, which is where all of your initial combos sort of revolve around. We've got the Dagda and the Verte, which I mentioned. for the DP Scythe Lock combo. I know it's super boring. It's what everybody's doing right now. This deck can do it particularly well, and I figured if we're going to play this, you know, more rogue deck right now, we might as well play it to the point where it's going to actually do something and have a pretty fair chance of winning. And it's been performing pretty well, if I'm being honest, so definitely like that a lot. We have Masquerena, we have Rusty, who is my favorite Link monster in the entire game, and I'm so glad he's not banned anymore. I say that every single time I do a deck profile with him, and I play him in so many different decks too. It's crazy. I just absolutely, this makes the whole Phantom Knight package work. Just such an unbelievably strong monster. We have a small Nightmare package as well. Phoenix doesn't really come up a lot, but sometimes it does if we need to pop a problematic back row. But the Masquerena Unicorn package comes up all the time. And then Appaloosa and Access Code. Appaloosa is what we will make going first if we decide not to make the DPE Dagda line, but unfortunately we can't. I haven't found a way, unless we open like just a crap ton of extenders, I haven't found a way to be able to go Appaloosa Rusty with Fogblade set plus the Verte and Dagda. We would need another 4 monsters on board after succeeding in that combo in order to make the link materials for that. And so that becomes a little bit problematic. Also, proccing Dagda's effect can sometimes be difficult as well after you've extended that far. That's it for the link monsters. On to the Exceeds. I really hate playing only one Breaksword. Breaksword is crazy powerful. He's almost like a smaller DPE in a way, and then of course he pops himself and floats into this guy, which can then rank himself up into the Arc Rebellion, which is a game ender. Before I got my copy of Access Code, I was playing this guy, and he is definitely a game ender, don't get me wrong. He's incredibly strong, but not as reliable as Access Code for closing out games, because he's the only monster that can attack that turn. And so if your opponent doesn't have so much on board that his attack becomes well over lethal, you're going to end up giving your opponent an additional turn, which can be really annoying. Also, Raider's Knight has this effect where it destroys the monster that it summons off of the rank up ability, but Arc Rebellion is actually immune to that, so he doesn't actually die from that, which is pretty crazy that they built that interaction in with this guy. And then, of course, we've got Downard and Zeus because we're playing an Exceed-focused deck, so that only makes sense. And then the last extra deck card, of course, is the DPE. I was pretty salty about this card's existence until I actually forked out the money for one, and he's just a lot of fun. Wins a lot of games on his own. Not the most... Honestly, not that degenerate of a card. Like, there's a lot of counterplay that works around it. It's honestly a pretty fair effect. All it's really doing is destroying monsters. It's not like he is immune to card effects or anything like that. It's just the fact that he can do it, you know, quick effect on your turn and your opponent's turn, comes back every standby phase and gets himself off the board, kind of like Stardust Dragon used to do back in the day. That's what makes him immune to a lot of effects, is that he's just not on the board. So, but Called by the Grave, DD Crow, Ghost Bell are definitely his biggest weakness. But yeah, overall, I think is just honestly a super well-designed card. I just wish that it was less generic so that the entire meta wasn't able to take advantage of it like it is. And so then onto the side, I mentioned with most deck profiles now on this channel, I'm going to be thinking about a side deck and showing the side deck unless the deck is just super rogue and you would never take it to a tournament. But this deck, we definitely take it to a tournament. So I've got 3 Nibiru and 3 Bell. Bell has been coming up a lot, especially against decks that, you know, like this deck and like Eldritch and even like Dragon Link and all decks that play DPE. Bell is crazy against. Nibiru is pretty good because obviously you want to, this is a quote-unquote mid-range deck where you want to be able to kind of trade back and forth with your opponent and still have lines of play to go into. It's not one of those Unga Bunga combo decks where if they stop you and you put all of your gas and all of your extra deck into one play, you're kind of out of plays. But this card heavily punishes the decks that do play like that, so it ends up coming up a lot if you're going second. So if I know I'm going second, I'm definitely going to side in the Nibirus. Also, if I'm going second, I know I'm probably going to side in these cards. So I would probably side out maybe some of the Fog Blades for some of these. Not all of them, but some of them. And then, just more going second card, shut off your opponent's board. This is my budget replacement for Droplets, which is honestly just fine. And then decks like Eldritch that play a lot of back row and floodgates and stuff like that. We are playing a pretty hefty amount of back row removal for that, because there really wasn't much else I felt like putting in the side deck, and I thought about my siding patterns, and I really wanted, full play sets of cards, as opposed to playing random one-ofs like Red Reboot and Pankratops. I thought about Pankratops, and then I was like, I think I just want to play 3 Bell instead. But, the deck is doing pretty well. It's probably the weakest of my, actually competitive decks right now, which would be this deck plus Bird Up, plus Cyberse Eldritch, plus DDD, plus Dogmatica Invoked. Yeah, so a decent amount of powerful decks right now, but this one is probably the one that performed the worst out of those two, because, like I said, its big going first line is to either make Appaloosa Rusty with some Fogblade set to give you multiple monster interruptions, or it is the DPE Scythe lock, which is, every deck is doing that, and it only really punishes decks that do rely on the extra deck. So if you end up going up against a deck like Flunder, just does not lose to that at all, it's a pretty hard counter to that as a strategy if that's your entire game plan. So anyway, that's going to be it for this. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.